All right, and we're happy to have from Hiram College, Professor Jason Johnson here this morning. Thanks for being here. Let's talk a little bit about the debates and how big of a role they play. Of course, all eyes were on there, and it's still kind of early at this point.
We're still 18 months away. There's basketball, especially in this area. A lot of people are more interested in basketball and baseball, but to the party faithful, these actually do matter, and it matters to fundraisers. In particular, on the Democratic side, you've got sort of your big trinity. You've got Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, and John Edwards pulling in at third. They're trying to establish themselves and tell people, hey, give us money in the fall stretch. They're looking at a potentially dangerous fall because you've got Al Gore sort of looming in the background, and they're hoping he doesn't come in and steal their thunder. For the Republicans, Giuliani wants to keep his position as the front runner, establish that his policies can actually bring in conservatives, and also worry about Fred Thompson or Newt Gingrich coming in the fall. A
lot of focus, though, has certainly been on Hillary and Obama. Let's talk a little bit about that. And Hillary got a lot of attention last week, and she has been, but especially last week.
Hillary Clinton has established herself as a front runner, but I say this about this race just like we said about Howard Dean several years ago. No one's voted for anything yet. Barack Obama managed to really catch up with her in a lot of national polls, in particular with independents after the debate on Sunday. He seemed to recover a great deal from not doing very well in the first debate, but Hillary Clinton has clearly established herself as the center-right candidate, and that may be to her detriment down the road as she has to court liberal primary voters in the Democratic Party.
What do you think we're going to be seeing?
I think there's a good chance we're going to see Hillary trying to distance herself from the left in order to establish herself as tough for the National Party. But I do believe there's a chance that Al Gore could pop into this race at the end and throw everything out of whack.
Let's talk a little bit about Obama and how he's moving up. He's gotten a lot of attention too, of course.
Yeah, there were some questions. He was the media darling for a while, and he sort of stumbled in some respects in the first debate. But the second debate, he went after John Edwards, he went after Hillary Clinton, he was specific about his health care plan. He seems to have sort of found his way in some respects with this second debate, and that probably bodes well for him heading into the fall.
A lot of people may be even surprised. I know we had just talked a little bit about it, but it's still a long way to go. And yet we're already getting kind of into some of the heavy topics. What are the most important topics that you think are really kind of standing out at this point?
Well, it depends on the party. For the Democrats, it's all going to be about the Iraq war. We hit the 3,500 mark as far as fatalities for U.S. soldiers. And as the war continues, whether it's perceived as good or bad, it's going to make a big difference in how Democrats sort of position themselves. For Republicans, it's going to be for the quote-unquote soul of the Republican Party. Who can really represent the right but make that palatable to the Midwest, to the West Coast? Those are going to be some of the main issues that they're facing.
All right, well, we have much more to talk about. Jason is kind enough to stick around. We will be talking to you in about 30 minutes or so. We have much more to come on First News this morning. We hope you stick around. And joining us this morning to talk more about the debates, we welcome Jason Johnson from Hiram College. Thanks for being here this morning. Looking at that and listening to some of the comments, let's start off first with your take on all of this.
Well, you know, one of the things that we were sort of talking about between the break is, you know, Giuliani has established himself as the front runner for the Republican Party, but he has some problems. One of the most interesting moments of the Republican debate is when he started talking about moral values and abortion. Lightning actually struck outside the debate, and he was cut off the air for a few seconds. I think that's a sign. Okay, Giuliani is going to have some real problems courting conservatives because of his own personal life, because of his background.
He got a lot of press.
Exactly. Multiple divorces. So I think that's going to be difficult for him, and no matter how well he does in these debates, he's still got to get through the South, and that's going to be a challenge.
But that's interesting, though, because with Clinton and all of the, you know, the scandals surrounding that, that seems to not really have much of an impact, though. You know, a lot of people still really support, though, former President Clinton, and you know, they still are very positive when they talk about him. So it is interesting, though. How do you see the difference there?
I think the difference is that Bill Clinton, believe it or not, he stayed with his wife. Hillary stayed with Bill, Bill stayed with Hillary. And so I think a lot of Americans, whether they wanted to admit that in polls or not, thought to themselves, hey, you know, my marriage isn't necessarily perfect either, so who am I to necessarily judge? And at the end of the day, the economy was working. It's sort of like winning solves everything. Well, when people are doing well in their jobs, when E-Trade is making you a lot of money, people were willing to forgive Bill Clinton's problems. But Giuliani is not going to be able to say that about the entire American.
But there have been some comments, though, about Hillary and why she stayed, because maybe some people people have speculated that she stayed so that she could actually run. What do you think about that?
That is highly likely. It's highly likely. I wouldn't want to challenge, I don't know the specifics of the Clinton marriage, but the reality is that Hillary Clinton separated from Bill Clinton isn't nearly as powerful. What people seem to be forgetting sometimes in these poll numbers of her front-runner status is a lot of that's her husband. I mean, Bill Clinton is crisscrossing the country talking about what a wonderful wife she is, how people should support her, and I could say that's probably a good 5 to 10% of the poll numbers that she's pulling right now is the fact that people love her husband, not necessarily her.
And the poll numbers, let's talk real quick about those too. We've seen a change since the debates and what people have been thinking and supporting. Talk about that.
It appears as though Barack Obama is starting to catch up with Hillary Clinton again. The USA Gallup poll, which is an outlier at this particular point, but he and Hillary Clinton are about neck and neck. Now, this has sort of been overinterpreted by both sides. Hillary Clinton's campaign team is saying, well, it doesn't really matter, they're the outlier. Barack Obama's campaign team has said, hey, this is a sign that Hillary is vulnerable. But the big issue, and I thought this was fascinating by one of his Obama's chief strategists, is national polls don't really matter. This is a sequential primary. It matters what happens in New Hampshire, it matters what happens in Iowa. And so I think they're sort of taking these results with a grain of salt. We're still 18 months away.
All right, well, we are out of time, but real quick, one of the hot topics, though, is the immigration reform bill. That's getting, of course, a lot of coverage.
There was a fascinating moment in the Republican debate where Congressman Tancredo, who ironically is from California, said that there should be a cessation of all legal immigration in the United States. And I think the Republicans were really caught off guard. They didn't know how to respond because as much as they want to talk about limiting immigration, they don't necessarily want to offend many big businesses out in the West who are dependent on legal and illegal immigration in order to be successful. I think John McCain had the best answer. He talked specifically about the number of Latino Americans who have green cards in America who are speeding up their citizenship process by joining the military and serving in Iraq. So I think he sort of knocked that one out of the park. The rest of Republicans, I don't think they really know what they want to say about immigration right now.
Well, there's so much more we could talk about, but we are out of time. Jason Johnson, thanks so much for being here this morning. We've got to take a quick break, but we will be right back. We hope you stay with us.